want to put in place, what would it look like?
Question, are you talking put in place as far as a service continuum?
Yeah, and if you want, on your next page, there is a little, suggestion of, just some brainstorming that we did here at the WESELPA as to what things that might look at. And I did kind of identify if there are things we currently have available to us who could do those, but also you'll see some of them don't have names. And maybe those are things you want to do, maybe you want to do other things, maybe you think those are bad ideas.
When you look at this, one of the things you look at this is within our field we have services defined by primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary services you can think of as your universal services that are available to all children, whether regular education or special education. Secondary being the next level up. You've identified a student that has a need, and what can we do under the least restrictive environment to address that need of that student? Looking at, does he need the big gun, or can we just intervene? Is this a transitional issue? Tertiary being the individualized and even sometimes residential type placements. And so there is a continuum of services that we are looking at developing that we hadn't had before because we were very pigeonholed basically as far as school-based, school-focused individual counseling. And so now that door could possibly open up based on your needs as far as what would you like to see us. We can participate and help developing some of those primary interventions, helping districts set up, look at anger management groups, look at social groups, look at clubs, those kinds of things. Of course, we're there for the secondary and then the tertiary as well.
Well, I'll just step out and say social skills is just unbelievable right now for me. And my speech therapists are struggling with what their role is. On their plus the fact that we're short speech therapists, and we're floundering a little bit to decide whose responsibility is it. Is it classroom teacher? Is it speech? Is it counseling? Is it everybody?
And you've got some really good ones that do really good work with autism.
I do.
Yeah.
And their caseloads are at 80 right now because I can't find anybody. But in addition to that, I really need some support just training our general ed staffs at each of the sites on how to identify social skills needs and help with that. So that would be my priority if you're looking for outcome.
And actually, that's something Garth and I have. We have a training that we.
It's almost in every IEP that we work on together, and requests now for more independent evaluations because it doesn't appear that we know what to do. And on a side note, I just to invite everyone. October 19th, we have someone coming, Carol Flexer. Yes, Gary met back in Virginia at something, and she's coming here for the purpose of talking about the use of amplification systems. But she's going to stay after to work with our psychs and speech therapists on theory of mind and social skills and so on. So I'll email everybody the date, time, and location if you're interested, because I hear she's quite a great presenter and then doing something in this area on the 20th, but I don't know what.
She's presenting for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Auditory Council from Region 10. So, and that's sponsored here by the West End Office, so she will
She'll be with us the day before with you.
Okay.
But that would be a huge need for us.
I don't, and I'm not a director now, but when I was a director, I found that having strong pre-referral, so the ability to have those groups at that early stage. Is important because then it keeps them from going into, a lot of times you can intervene and the student doesn't then need ongoing individual counseling. So maybe it's not pre-referral, but maybe like you said, that step 2, kind of counseling, different groups.
Tier 1 to the next level, tier 2.
No, tier two,
From
we're looking
primary
at this,
going
tier
into
two.
secondary from.
Yeah,
tier
the secondary, it's more targeted. Yeah, it's
If you
more
don't
specifically
address-
targeted.
Yeah, if you don't address the primary, your number in the secondary and the tertiary continue to increase. And sooner or later, you capsize.
Yeah, but if you don't have any secondary set anywhere, which a lot of places don't, when I was in Altaloma, we had the privilege of being able to have, for all kids, but they were for special ed students as well, some group counseling available. And so that kept some students from requiring additional, whatever the issue was, we caught it early, able to target it, it was fine. Not all kids, but, you know, because it was very small. But I know that was a big priority, because you can keep kids from getting to that next level.
And unfortunately, I think some districts have had to, don't have the funding for those contracts any longer,
Right.
you know, because of budget cuts. So, you know, we're dealing with pressures on both ends.
And a lot of our special ed students, there's not a lot, but there's some that need that group, they don't need individual, they need kind of a group for their social skills. Your students with some, you know, attentional type issues, behavioral issues related to learning disabilities, students with autism, of course, but there's other kids too that need it. And it affects them in school where they're not moving forward.
And with that, what I would also add is bilingual, bicultural, social skills.
Right?
Individual, of course, is still a priority, I'm sure.
Anything else? Some of these things, I mean, I think, you know, these really are, you know, for years we've talked about these issues and we've talked about, you know, the need for them, and we now have kind of an opportunity to formalize what we can do with those. And, you know, one of the things about, you know, we do provide some group services, but the barrier we've had is that there oftentimes are not enough students at a particular site that have the same need to form a cohesive group to address. So, you know, we're going to have to think about how do we then deliver that service? Where would it occur? And how would we go about doing that? And, you know, so I'm thinking probably our next step would be to maybe form a small committee of people who would want to work on these things. And also, you know, one of the things I want to know from you too is what do you guys want to take on as district providers, and what would you like to have provided regionally, because either you don't currently have the resources, or you may think you may never have a big enough need in any one area to, you know, to have that service at your district level. So, because I know, you know, some of the districts have already, some do a lot more in this area, and some don't do quite as much, based on their resources and based on their who they're serving. Because they may, you know, some of the kids that are need these services may be served in regional programs already. So we want to have some good discussion about that, so we can really identify what should be done regionally and what, you know, people take responsibility for doing in district.
So John, if we were to hire a counselor to cover some of these on tier 2, is that considered a take back?
I don't think at this point in time it would be. I mean, I really think we, you know, we're here just reinventing the wheel at this time.
Can I also, I'm like way behind everyone, the anxiety reduction training with a priority, it goes hand in hand with that social skills, but I was processing stuff. get it up there, John.
Looking at the tiers,
And I know since this kept coming up, it was part of our discussion amongst the counselors last year. And actually over the summer, the counselors really researched some of this, especially in relation to autism. And they went back to the research and found some research-based effective interventions for anxiety reduction. So, and I'm sure, they'd be happy to share some of those things with you because, there have been some models that, because if we do something, we want to make sure, we're using something that's based in research and has a chance of being effective.
question for the group, as we look at our tiers, when we get to that tertiary, tier 3, right below residential is day treatment, which often day treatments can keep students from having to go to residential. Because I work, due process and closely with Ann, and we know what's going on, is that a priority for some of our districts to have some form of a day treatment either developed or added into some existing program, or, because we haven't really talked about that high end.
Right. And you'll see also we added intensive services, and I'm not sure where intensive service and day treatment begins and ends, but this came up particularly when we have kids who may be at risk of going into residential treatment. Generally, it's all supposed to be individualized, but darn well if the kid was referred to DBH, at best they got 2 sessions per month. And do we have some kids that maybe need to be seen 3 times a week? And I think, this is now, since we're in charge of this, we can begin to make those decisions, whereas, the law actually said under, Government Code 26.5, it actually said the decision of DBH will be the decision of the IEP team. That is totally the opposite of what it says in IDEA. So whatever they recommended, we had to take. So, I think now we can make those recommendations, and, we can really look at a system that would be more responsive.
There could be situations where a child, because of a family situation or something that happened, needs 2 to 3 sessions a week. We would be able to build into that model if the districts wanted to see that kid short-term for that period of time to stabilize and move forward. At the school, anchor. The school, for some of our kids, is the only stable environment that they have. And so if they start showing anxiety or blowing it at the school, we anchor them back there. You're safe here. That helps them move forward more quickly.
Is day treatment something we need to make a priority? Is that just not a big need right now for our population here?
I know we don't have a huge residential
Right, we don't.
piece,
Right.
but in my experience, when we were at Lyft, that did cut our numbers down.
Do people know what a day treatment program would look like? That word day treatment, do you have a clear definition of what that looks like?
And that too doesn't have to be long-term.
No, in fact, it generally is defined as short-term.
Would you explain what that looks like?
Day treatment program typically is 2 to 3 times per week. When I was at DBH, we would run it 3 times a week. It would be 2 hours per week. We would be intensely focused on relationship issues, anger management issues. They would get some individualized services. Joan and I and Lisa and the leadership group have been talking. Our day treatment program, what we feel along with Amy, is that part of the things that we don't do with our older kids, I think, isn't the services. We don't start to push them more, looking at what's going to be like after high school, and having conversations with some of the transition people as far as saying, could we do some stuff on a day treatment type model? So day treatment programs were helping those adolescents prepare to become adults. Mental health, of course, they all had chronic mental illnesses to do the day treatment program, so it was